There are those type of people who are content with achieving just the bare minimum in life, and then there are the extremely driven people out there that are ambitious, determined to succeed, and a role model for all. Former professional rugby player and director of the 1823 group, Gareth Hardy falls into that latter group of incredible individuals, and you'll hear why. Gareth, thank you for joining us here at the Rugby Business Network.
Oh, no problem. Happy to be on this podcast.
Great. Well, Gareth, let's start off with your rugby playing days. You played professionally for the Waratahs and the Western Force in Australia before making the move to the UK to play for Leeds Carnegie. Why did that move take place, and which part of your career would you say was the highlight for you?
Interesting. To be fair, the whole part of my career was a highlight. So the Waratahs was purely more of a development phase. I was the starting team, but I was playing with with some players who will go down as the all-time great, and we were very successful. And I was a young kid, so that was a massive highlight. And then the Western Force was another opportunity for me to be a part of a team that was starting off, and also allowing me to be a part of growing the game of rugby in the Western Australia. With that part, I think I played some of my best rugby then, and I saw myself starting a lot of the games. And then obviously moving to Leeds, I think I saw an opportunity to play in the Premiership. My sort of days of potentially playing for my country were sort of, in my eyes, were over. And I saw an opportunity to sort of have another sort of journey of Leeds trying to maintain Premiership survival. While those were quite tough times, it was a great experience to play in the Premiership, live in a different country, meet some different people. So I think in each section of my career, there's been highlights in themselves because they were a different phase each time. And so I wouldn't really change any of it, if I'm honest.
That's wonderful. Well, Gareth, you were born in Australia, but you now live and work in the UK. So does that mean you consider yourself as an Australian or a Brit?
I just had a little baby girl, and she's got 2 passports, and she's born in Westminster, so her birth certificate says Westminster. So the answer to the question is that my father was English. I've always had a connection to this side of the world. While I will never necessarily forget where I come from, I think I get to sit in between all that's good is British and all that's good that is Australian, if you know what I mean. Look, I think you never forget where you come from, but I also do really love living in this country.
Well, it's good that you have those 2 passports and connections to either country there. Well, you had a long and enjoyable professional rugby career, Gareth, but you never got to play and experience what life would have been like with the Wallabies. Any regrets because of that? And why do you think you were overlooked?
You can't ever have any regret in sport or professional sport. I think I did the best I can at the time, and I had a lot of opportunities. The thing with rugby is it's subjective, regardless of many of the objective figures that you can, how many tackles made and all that type of stuff. But there's also some really good players who were, in my eyes at the time, were the better player. You can never have those type of regrets and not necessarily playing for your country. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have played, but you've also got to be realistic as well.
Well, it's great to know that there's no lingering thoughts of regret or resentment there. Well, Gareth, not only did you work hard on the rugby field, but you were equally and possibly, if not more, dedicated to your studies, as you studied for a degree in applied science, and if that wasn't enough, you studied even further for a master's in business. How were you able to strike that right balance between playing professional rugby and also doing all of those studies?
The Australian Rugby Union and the Rugby Union Players Association in Australia, part of your contract in Australia is that you have to do a certain amount of academia throughout your contract, and then they also make resource available. So during my career in Australia, there was a significant amount of opportunity to look at furthering my academic credentials, and I basically got to a stage where I was looking at what happens after rugby, because it has a pretty short half-life. The Australian Rugby Union ultimately, and the Rugby Union Players Association, gave me an avenue to look at further academic sort of credentials, and I took full advantage, and they basically paid for my MBA. I can't thank them enough, because it's been the cornerstone to basically everything I've done after after rugby. So from their point of view, it's really important.
Well, it seems, Gareth, that you just take everything in your stride. As while you were at Leeds and busy completing your studies, you were also a part owner of a property development business back in Australia. What did your teammates think of you and your pursuits away from rugby?
I think everyone had their fingers in some pie, so to speak, at the time. And I would say that I had some friends who were sort of out in the business world, and I saw an opportunity to potentially get in on the action. And you should always look at multiple forms of income and never rely on one, because the risk is too high. And I sort of took that in my stride, and making sure that there was always an opportunity to look elsewhere for income and also life experience, you know.
And when the time came to retire and focus completely on your business career, I would imagine, Gareth, that from your extensive planning and preparations done, that your transition must have been quite seamless. Was this the case for you?
It looks like that on the face of it. It's quite the contrary, actually. I don't think anyone can ever prepare you for, any type of retirement, particularly when you're playing professional sport. You're travelling around the world. Your income, your lifestyle, even your lifestyle for your family changes abruptly. I don't think anyone can prepare you for that. And most professional rugby players, that's all they've ever had from the age of 18, 19 to 30. So it's one of those things that I don't think any type of preparation, it's like, anyone could tell you, you need to do this and you do that. Don't get me wrong, the study in academia gave me an element of confidence and also an element of being able to get back into the world in a different manner very quickly. But I must say the first couple of years were still very difficult because, even though you've got this study and the credentials, you don't necessarily have the thought process, the change of lifestyle, and those things can definitely affect you.
Absolutely. Well, that transition period is now well and truly over, because you are now the co-founder and sales director at business telecommunications company 1823 Group, which was once known as Rugby Tel. What steered you into this sector of business? And could you tell us just a little bit more about exactly what it is you do with this company?
At the end of my master's, I did a thesis on sustainable income streams for rugby clubs throughout the UK and amateur rugby clubs, to create an affiliated marketing scheme whereby they offer services through a vehicle to businesses that support them that they're already paying for, utilities, printing, telecoms, all those business services that every business needs. And then the rugby club gets a kickback on that. In theory, it sounds great. In practice, it's a lot different. So we looked at all the different sectors, and to be fair, utilities was the one that we wanted to look at. Unfortunately, the Big Six held a bit of a monopoly around it, and the margins are pretty small. So the payback to the clubs was quite insignificant in terms of changing their sort of P&L. And therefore, we sort of looked at telecoms, and it became quite apparent quite quickly there was an opportunity there to provide customers via the rugby clubs with services that they're already paying for, and also to provide some significant income to the rugby clubs. So we partnered with a big telco who looked after a number of banks and big insurance companies and sizable businesses, that then allowed us to go into businesses via the rugby clubs with some reputation of being able to support the services they need to run their business on a daily basis. And that was the first couple of years, of the business, whereby we went to rugby clubs, asked them to make introductions to the businesses within their business network, and then we would then go and see them and talk to them about their telecoms. We would then go from being able to supply them with telecoms, and then the rugby club would get a sustainable income stream on a monthly basis. We're kind of taking it to the next level now, and hence sort of the name change from sort of Rugby Tel to 1823 Group. Businesses now have a CSR strategy, and being able to then support businesses in their crusade to be sustainable via their corporate social responsibility strategy. And we've made some pretty big steps with a lot of businesses who are trying to implement this type of strategies internally. And I firmly believe in the next 10 years, consumers won't really be working with businesses, and not just consumers, other businesses, unless you've had an internal corporate social responsibility strategy. So we've been supplying businesses with telecoms who then donate their money back into either the charity they're supporting that year, the rugby club potentially, or back into the employees' fund per se, if that makes sense.
Yes, of course. And sounds absolutely fascinating what you're busy doing there at 1823 Group. But could you share with us possibly some of the standout success stories that you have had since the company was started?
One of the key fulcrums to our success was one of our first customers, Redfern Travel, which is a corporate travel company who look after a lot of the government sort of travel needs. And so we went on a pretty amazing journey with them, because they grew from sort of 43 people to about sort of 150 people in sort of 3 or 4 years, and we grew with them. They are still a customer today, 5 or 6 years down the track, and we sort of hang our hat on most 99% of the customers we've signed. We still have. Redfern Travel was one of the key success stories in what we're all about as a company. You know, we want to work with companies who share in our ethos in giving back. Ethos in honesty and good customer service.
Fantastic. Well, Gareth, in your opinion now, and drawing on your experience, how can rugby clubs better prepare themselves to make sure that they continue to grow financially and don't ever have to worry about how they're going to survive and make money?
If I had the answer to that, I'd bottle it, and I'd be a very, very wealthy man and a very popular man. Look, I will never ever begin to understand how, you know, each club is extremely different, and they've got history as well. You know, a lot of these clubs are 100 years old. You know, who am I to tell people who've been at a club for 40 or 50 years on how to run a club? All I can sort of say is I'm passionate about helping them on their journey to get to some sustainable sort of environment. And the environment in which they're operating has changed significantly with professionalism, with the economy, with the competitiveness for sporting dollars as well. It's also about the people who are around the community table as well. A lot of the older guys who are retired have had to kind of do it themselves for a long period of time, and now that hopefully they're getting a new generation come through, and I think is key. They're allowing the older guys who are retired to kind of enjoy the fruits of their labour, and younger guys come through to help that. A lot of the rugby clubs costs, 20 years ago, a lot different than what they are now in terms of, just running the rugby club. The junior sections these days are significant, and then they're the cornerstone of a lot of these rugby clubs.
Interesting. Well, now, merging rugby and business together, Gareth, what do you feel are some of the values that work well in both environments, and what are the lessons that can be learned from one another?
There's two things that come to mind pretty quickly. It's honesty and discipline. I think one of the best things about rugby is that it's a physical game, and being able to react in a disciplined manner in a physical, aggressive game is a really key element that can be transferred into business. And while you're not necessarily under fatigue, you're under stress, and being able to act around the people around you in a disciplined manner is really key, I think. And being able to then communicate that in an effective way is massive, and so it's paramount in a game of rugby to be able to communicate to the people around you while you're fatigued in a disciplined way. And I think that is one of the key things that I've found that have helped. The honesty element is that there's no point not telling the truth. In the same thing in rugby, the best way to help yourself and the person next to you is be honest with them. But I played in the front row, and while I was never a world beater, I found that being able to communicate in an honest fashion to the people around you only help them help you, and then therefore help the team. And therefore, that in business world is showing some honesty, even if it's at your behest in some ways. If you're explaining to a customer how you dropped the ball or how you missed something, and that's affected them and affected their business. 99% of humans, if you do have that honesty, they'll react in a way to go, okay, I appreciate that. And then we move straight on to how to fix the problem.
Could not have said it better. Discipline and honesty, always some key values to hold on to. Well, you do also spend some of your time as an event organizer for the Rugby Business Network there in London. How and why did you get involved with the organisation, and what do you feel is the best quality that the RBN possesses?
Go straight on from what I've just talked about. The TRBN is a great opportunity for the business world to also give back to the world of rugby and where they've come from. I think I was more than happy to sort of get involved with COM and when it was in its infancy, and saw an opportunity to create an environment where business people could be in a room and look to help each other. The people will be doing more business, which means that there'll be more time, funding available for the rugby clubs and the community of rugby. And I think that's a really important message and something that I think sometimes gets missed a fair bit. And it's something that resonates massively with me. And I think by doing business with each other, this creates a cyclic nature of the money and time and effort being put back into the game that we all love. And I think the other thing is it's also nice to look into the whites of people's eyes who you also know share a passion and love of the game that has brought you so much happiness and joy over sort of a long period of time. And I think the TRBN is a really good environment for those type of relationships to be formed and hopefully more into the future.
Cheers to that. Well, lastly, Gareth, what goals or hopes do you have that you would like to achieve in your business career, considering that you are still relatively young, you're in your 30s, but yet you've achieved so much already?
Look, I think it's about trying to always improve, much like in rugby. I think that's all you can ask of anyone, and we'll look to do that, both in business and in everything else we do. It's always looking to do things in a better way, or that create a better environment. I think if you have that with the people you work with internally and with externally, I think that will always stand you in good stead for preparing for the good times and the bad.
Well, that is a great goal to constantly want to achieve. Well, Gareth, you certainly are an inspiration for professional rugby players out there looking to make a career in business after retirement. And the stories that you have shared with us definitely vouch for that. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us at the Rugby Business Network.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.